Okay, let's get started. Thank you guys for coming today. We're going to be talking to you guys about the employee options that are available to help with the impact of SafeTrack over the next 9 to 12 months or so. My name is Joe Kang. I'm the Enterprise Change Manager. I work within HR. Flexibility kind of falls under my purview right now, so we're working really hard to figure out what are some viable options for you guys. We also have representatives from Arlington Transportation Partners. Brendan is here to talk to you guys about alternate methods of transportation if Metro Rail is not a viable option for you. Okay, so I'm assuming that most of you guys have heard about SafeTrack and what's happening. So this is just a high overview of the projected dates that Metro has announced. So starting June 4th, which is not this Saturday, but a week from this Saturday, they're gonna start working on the track. So that's gonna mean expanded track work hours. It's gonna also mean for several days at a time, or even several weeks at a time, certain shutdowns of different segments and lines. Metro has published their repair plan, and it can be found on their website, but we will also make sure that a link is posted on AC Commons and whatnot so that you guys have access to that. So how is SafeTrack impacting us? This is just a visualization of what you guys may see and experience while these repairs are going on. You'll see lots of congestion in terms of the Metro Rail, but also, as people are going to start avoiding Metro Rail if it doesn't work for them during certain dates, you're gonna see those folks think of what's my best option to get to work? How do I get to work on time? A lot of those folks are gonna be flowing onto buses, onto the road. So we wanna make sure that we have as many options available to you guys as possible to help with that. So one possible way to combat the congestion and the traffic and the general headache that you guys may experience during these outages is to consider looking at any flexible work arrangements that the county offers, as long as it works for not only for you, but also for your department and your team. And we want to make sure that the services that we provide don't falter during these times as well. So there are 3 different options right now that you may want to consider thinking about and discussing amongst your team and your supervisor, as long as your position is eligible for it. Telework is one of the options that we are highly encouraging. So there are several of employees in the county that are already participating in telework regularly. So if you are already doing that on a regular basis, you may want to talk with your supervisor to see, how can we increase this? How can we do this a little bit more often to help with the commute that I have? Everybody has unique commuting situations, right? So you guys will have to work individually together with your supervisor to figure that out. Telework is another option for those that don't do it regularly. That's something that you guys may want to start thinking about and start evaluating what can be done on your behalf to figure out what works out best for you and your department as well. Then we also have flex time and compressed work schedules. Flex time is thinking about, okay, when do we actually provide our services? When are we hit the most with requests from our customers? Are there peak hours or are there non-peak hours where we do our work? Can we think about shifting those hours creatively so that we don't have to deal with the morning or afternoon rush hours? So that takes a little bit more creative thinking, but that's something else to consider as well. And then compressed work schedules, that's a third option. That is, an example of that is where if you have a job where you can get all of your work done within 4 days, right? So if you can work 40 hours and get all that work done, but then your team and your supervisor has enough coverage on site on that 5th day, then you may be able to take that day off and not have to work. That's one common way to do compressed work schedules. There's another one where it's a 980. So you would be working 80 hours, but within 9 days of a single pay period. So that's another thing that you may want to consider as you are thinking about alternative options to dealing with a SafeTrack commute. Okay, so this next slide is for the supervisors in the room. So a lot of your employees are going to be very curious about these flexible work arrangements and if that's an option for them. And you guys are going to have to think about, okay, what is our primary business function? Do we have a lot of customers that come to us face-to-face? Or is most of our work done electronically or virtually? Or do we mostly handle phone calls? Do we handle emails? Do we work on a lot of computer-based things that may or may not be portable? It really depends on your job, right? So you guys want to think from that perspective. You guys want to be able to think and see what is the proper balance? What is the minimum coverage that we need on site if on site is a requirement for the job, right? So once you've gone through that thinking process, then it's time to start thinking about, is telework a viable option for the employee that's going to come knocking at your door about one of these arrangements? If telework is a viable option, then these are some of the considerations that you will need to think about as well. One way to do that is by setting very clear performance expectations. So if that person is going to go into a situational telework agreement during the SafeTrack implementation, then you want to be able to make sure that not only are you prepared on your end to make sure that things are going smoothly, but that they are accountable as well, right? So making sure that you have clear performance expectations when they are away from the office. So if the only thing that should really change on telework day is where you're working from. It doesn't change in how you are responding to your customers. It doesn't change in how responsive you are to your teammates or your supervisor as well. Secondly, because you're not going to be face-to-face with that employee if they are in a situational telework agreement, you want to make sure that you are over-communicating because some things can get lost in translation. If there are discussions that are happening within the office amongst your team, but that team member isn't there, you have to make sure that there is a communication that goes out to that team member so that not only are they not isolated, but they're also aware of what's going on when they do come back into the office. And that goes, lastly, for the third point up there as well. So if you do have team meetings or whatnot when a team member is away on a telework day, you also want to make sure that the conference room where you have that meeting is enabled for their participation. So is there a conference phone that they can dial into, a conference line that they can dial into to participate in that meeting, and then making sure that if you are presenting slides or documents or whatnot, that they do get a copy ahead of time just so that they're aware of where you are in that presentation. Okay, so if you are an employee and a situational telework agreement is something that you guys can consider during this time, then there are some things that you, as an employee, as a staff member, have to consider to go through the process of being eligible and being approved for that telework agreement. So one, you have to make sure that you have job duties or your primary job duties can be portable and can be done from a remote worksite location. And that remote worksite location needs certain things, right? So you need to have a high-speed internet connection. You need to have access to a computer so that you can connect to the county network and have access to your files. You need to be actively using Skype for Business to stay in contact with your teammates and your supervisors to practice that over-communication, if you will, so that you guys are all on the same page in terms of what needs to be done, when it needs to be completed by, and any requests that you may receive. Another thing to note is to know how to forward your desk phone. So if somebody does need to reach you, if they dial your extension, and you're not there to answer it, then it's going to go straight to voicemail, right? So if you forward your phone to your personal, not your personal, but your county-issued mobile phone, that should be one way for them to get in contact with you right away. Other folks that work in the office, you guys may encounter a lot of drive-bys, if you will, right? So if people come by looking for you at your cube, they don't see you there, they may not bother asking you the questions that they have. If you update your Outlook calendar on a regular basis and you state that you're working elsewhere, they can tell right away, not only through Outlook, but also on Skype, that they can IM you or at least call you to get the answer that they need. And then lastly, from a policy standpoint, you need to read through the flexwork policy and then complete a situational telework or flexwork agreement. And in the policy, currently it states in terms of performance rating, if you, at a minimum, you need to have met expectations to be able to be eligible. Okay, so this is a lot of information at once. I apologize for that, but we are also getting information as fast as we can from Metro. So we're scrambling right now to get everything ready for you guys. So one of the things that we're in development right now is a AC Commons Telework page, and we're gonna be, on that site, it's gonna be kind of like a one-stop shop of information, if you will. So the flexwork policy is gonna be on there, which is being worked on right now, along with that situational flexwork agreement. We are also developing really short and simple 90 seconds to 2-minute videos that folks that are new to teleworking, if you will, can learn how to use Skype, can learn how to forward their desk phone, can learn how to update their Outlook calendar, and et cetera. So we'll be hosting all of that information on there. And we will also post up some frequently asked questions that you guys may encounter as you guys go through this process. From a technology standpoint, DTS will be scheduling some tech cafes. So there'll be information sessions where you guys can bring your mobile device. If you have specific questions about, okay, how do I get Skype onto my iPad? How do I log in and start a Skype video meeting with my boss using my mobile device? Things of that nature. Those will be set up for next week, and we'll be sending out another communication from employee updates regarding those dates. Okay. Brendan, why don't you come on up?
Hi, everyone. My name is Brendan Casey. I'm here from Arlington Transportation Partners. I'm here to talk about the transit options that you may have available to you during the SafeTrack Metro Maintenance Program. Already at the second slide. So SafeTrack is coming. It's about a week and a half away. June 4th is a Saturday. There are a lot of transit options in Arlington, and I implore you to take everything I'm saying to heart and find a day within this next week and a half to try one of these transit options if it works for you. Don't wait until SafeTrack is here to go out and try a new commute for the first time. It's going to be a little more stressful than it would otherwise. Next slide, please. Metro moves about 700,000 people a day, so regardless of where the shutdowns and single tracking is in the system, it's going to have ripple effects across the region. So it is really important that you exercise your commute options. Do not just be a turtle and stuck into one mode of commuting. Outside of the telework options and flexible work scheduling that Joe already mentioned, we also have plenty of buses within Arlington that you may or may not have tried already. Make sure you do explore what those options are, and I'll give you some tips on how to find out that information. Carpooling is a great option that many people may not be considering, as well as vanpooling, and my personal favorite, biking. So when it comes to bus options, there's a great county tool called Car Free A to Z. This will give you information about all the transit around locations that you designate. So you can tie it to your home location, where you work, where you shop for groceries, where your child's daycare is. You input all that information, and it gives you a 30,000-foot view of what are all the transit connections between those places. So this is not a trip planner like Google. It's not going to tell you you need to leave right now to get out the door and catch this bus to your location. It is showing you all the interconnections that are out there that you probably did not realize existed. When you are on the go, I highly recommend an app that is free called City Mapper. Works in other cities as well, but it is fantastic for finding out how you can get on transit, where it's going to get you to, and what kind of connections you need to make in order to get there. These apps are going to be updating as much as they can with SafeTrack information as Metro makes it available, but keep in mind that the SafeTrack schedule as is fluid. It is probably not going to go exactly according to plan, imagine that, but we are going to try to adapt as best we can based on the information we're given. Some bus routes I'd like to highlight just around here. The Metro Bus 38B is called the Orange Line with a View. So if Metro is shut down in this particular area, which it will be at one point, or single tracking, make sure you're aware of the 38B. Super easy to get onto. It's going to have increased frequency as a result of SafeTrack. And literally between Roslyn and Boston, it's almost the same exact trip, and you will not lose cell phone service while you're on the bus. Other routes of note, the ART 43 is a great way if you're a Blue Line commuter to get from Crystal City to Roslyn and Courthouse. And that is just commuter hour buses, commuter hours. So that is a great way to make that connection when they do the shutdown around Reagan National. Other ones would be the ART 45 as well down in Roslyn. Great way to get down to DHS if you have meetings there as well. For those of you coming from outlying areas, make sure you know what your commuter bus options are. There's a lot of them, so I'm not going to dive into specifics here, but if you go to commuterpage.com, there is a transit options page there, and it actually outlines all of the regional commuter buses that are out there, be it from Loudoun, Manassas, Stafford. There are a lot out there. So know what your options are. Carpooling. Important that you register for carpooling if you haven't done so already. Commuterconnections.org is a regional or metropolitan planning organization. They run a ride matching database that will help you find people that are traveling in the same direction, starting from the same general location and traveling to the same work location, and try to pair you up with one another so that you can carpool together so that one of you is not stressed out behind the wheel. You get access to HOT or HOV lanes. It can be a more pleasant experience and cuts down on congestion on the roads overall. If you have not tried it, at least, if you're not going to sign up for Commuter Connections, at least see who in your office is potentially traveling in the same direction and try to form an informal carpool that way. On top of that, there's also a Commuter Connections program that I highly recommend called Guaranteed Ride Home. If we go to the next slide, and one more. Guaranteed Ride Home gives you 4 free rides home a year, provided that you are a regular transit commuter, or you bus, walk, carpool, vanpool, anything other than driving alone to work. As long as you're making that alternative commute at least 2 days a week, you qualify for Guaranteed Ride Home. This is a great backup option if you are new to an alternative commute as a result of SafeTrack. But let's say you are a carpooler suddenly and your carpool has to leave without you because you're working late. Guaranteed Ride Home is a great way to then still get you home and you're still a carpool commuter. You didn't need to drive in that day because you have that backup option that will get you home and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to do so. When you do utilize Guaranteed Ride Home, it only works from your work address to your home address between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. So when you sign up, you're signing up and giving them those 2 addresses. You can't call for a free cab ride from any other location. We often get questions about that. Next slide, please. This brings me to vanpooling, which is a little more difficult to set up than carpooling because there are more people involved. However, Arlington Transportation Partners has an incentive program that we are strongly urging people to consider as we get into SafeTrack. And what we're offering is $50 a month for your first 6 months of vanpooling. This can be used in combination with the $130 transit subsidy you are already receiving as a county employee. So if you do want to try vanpooling, you can switch that transit subsidy to vanpooling, and you'll have to speak to your HR contact in order to do a back-end change for that. But so that would give you $180 a month to put towards vanpooling. Conveniently enough, the regional average cost for vanpools is $190 a month per rider. So that almost completely subsidizes your vanpool cost for those first 6 months. The benefits of vanpooling can be as simple as reduced stress, higher productivity at work since you're not the one sitting in traffic behind the wheel. You're able to be productive while on the ride, either relaxing, listening to music, reading news, doing work if you need to. It frees you up so that your commute is not lost time. On top of the Vanpool Connect program that we have, we've partnered with 2 of the largest vanpool providers in the region, Enterprise Rideshare and V-Ride. Between the 2 of them, we are really trying to find vans with empty seats so that we can put people into those vans that are already commuting in the same direction. If we have enough people, which this is great because Courthouse Plaza is a huge employment center, we may be able to create absolutely new vans with just Arlington County employees. But that remains to be seen how many of those we'll be able to create. It's really important that we get your name into our list of people who are interested in trying vanpooling. If you're even somewhat interested, let me know. I've got information up here at the front. We can put you into the ride matching database we're using for vanpooling and take that a step further. There's no obligation to follow through with it, but at least have your name in the hat so that if SafeTrack really screws up your commute, you already know what your other options are. Next slide, please. That brings me to biking. as a county employee, all of you have access to a free Capital Bike Share membership. Raise a hand, who actually knew they had free bike share? All right, that's awesome. So how many of you are actually using it? So not quite as awesome, but. So bike share, I don't want to belabor it. It sounds like many of you already know how it works, but it's simple point-to-point biking. You can check out a bike at any station, ride it to any other one with your annual membership free of charge, provided that trip is under 30 minutes. In the event you need to ride longer than 30 minutes, I recommend you dock the bike along the way at another station, check it back out to avoid any service charges. Some tools to use with bike share. Back up a second. Caveat to bike share, it is bike share, not bike rental. So the reason there are those time limits on it, it's meant as a mode of transit. Get from point A to point B and return that bike to the system so other people can use it for their trips they need to take. We often get people who, when they're new to it, they're checking out a bike for the full day and they have a $100 bill and they're really upset about bike share and oh my God, it's so expensive. They just did not understand how they should use it. So as long as you're treating it like bike share and not as a daily bike rental, if you want to do that, there are companies that do that. It is a fantastic option. If you live close enough, it may be an option for you to commute via bike share. However, even if you are in an outlying area and you're not necessarily close enough to bike the full way, bike share is a great backup tool to have in your wallet in the event there is a shutdown or your bus is overcrowded and you need to go further up the road to make another connection to some other form of transit. It gives you that flexibility that you don't suddenly need to hail a Lyft or an Uber or walk to another connection that you otherwise wouldn't have had to be making due to shutdowns or overburdened system wherever you are at that particular time. On top of all of that, there's a free app called SpotCycle, which you can use. There are a lot of stations in the region. I think we're at nearly 390. Don't quote me on that, but close enough to 400 in the region, as well as 3,000 bikes on the street at any given time. There's a lot of bikes and stations out there. With the app SpotCycle, you can quickly see where those stations are, how many bikes they have, and where empty spaces to park those bikes at other stations are. So you can trip plan with that SpotCycle app to make your bike share trips. On top of bike share, personal biking is a great option as well. I will say I'm an avid bike share user. However, I prefer my personal bike. It's a lot faster. Bike share is slow, steady, and safe. It is not meant to win races. So if you have not ridden a bike in a long time, bike share is a great option for you because you couldn't feel any more secure on that bike compared to being hunched over Tour de France style on a road bike. However, that being said, the Washington Area Bicyclist Association, who we partner with often, has many adult education courses, which I encourage you to look into if you're not comfortable biking at all because you have not done it in a very long time, maybe since you were a child, or if you've done it recreationally and now you're looking into doing it more as a form of transportation to get to work. They offer classes that can increase your skill set so that you're comfortable riding in an urban environment amongst mixed traffic, or they can do adult learn to ride classes if you just simply have not ridden a bike in a long time, or perhaps you've never ridden a bike. They're both great options regardless of what your skill level is. And even if you bike occasionally, it may be a good idea just to take a refresher course and see what could this be like for me to be commuting on a bike more regularly than I am currently, and what skills do I need to brush up on before I start doing that. Thank you very much.